What's up guys, John here and welcome back to John Moon Studios. In today's video we're going to be checking out the new software Atoms by Baby Audio, and I want to thank Michael from Baby Audio for sending me a copy and trying out the software. We're going to be checking out some of the preset sounds that are built into Atoms already, and then at the end of the video we're going to do a small composition to see how it works and feels in a real life composition. With that being said, let's get right to it. Alright, so we're going to go into Cubase and check out this synth plugin. So we're going to go ahead and open up the Atoms plugin, and as you can see it's very modern, very sleek, not too many buttons, but we have a lot to play around with as well. So this is Atoms. It has both a dark and light mode, so you can go ahead and toggle that up here in the top right. And we're just going to go ahead and just play some sounds just to see what we get out of the box. And just so that we can see that this is straight out of the box, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to load it up again one more time so that we have a blank slate. I didn't manipulate anything here. So we're going to go ahead and just play basic maybe 2 notes, see what it sounds like. Sounds pretty cool, gives me a little bit of a like an ominous feel to it. This could work really well for maybe sound design stuff or like very eerie things. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the next one. So we have a dirty Bram. That's also really nice. It's really cool. As you can see, we're in the ambient section, so it's really going to give us that atmosphere. And this kind of sounds like something that could be maybe in a documentary. Something that could build an atmosphere for the viewers to kind of be engaged, right? So let's try a little chord progression to see what happens if we do something like... That sounds pretty good, right? We can kind of hear how this can develop into something pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. So here we have alien atmospheres. That's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and check out the next one. So if we grab the attack and we shorten it a little bit, we can get a more direct sound. Which that's actually pretty cool. It kind of sounds playful to me, like this is something that can be in maybe like a cartoon. One specific sound that comes to mind is like even like the kalimba inside of the score for Avatar: The Last Airbender. So that's a pretty interesting sound. You could play around with the attack, you could play around with the release. We also have different sound profiles, so if I go here to standard, it changes the profile of the sound. Right, it's a little bit more brighter. Here it says inharmonic. We have a little bit more like a filtered sound. Alternative. Kind of sounds more modern to me. A little bit more poppy too. Lo-fi. Just a little bit more ducked down, maybe in the higher frequencies. But you still have those overtones kind of sticking out. Here on the left-hand side, we also have the root. They call it the root, but this is like a transposition. So I can transpose it up an octave. And then 2 octaves. Right, and then obviously going down, here's an octave down, and then there's an octave below that. And then in the middle, we have our regular pitch. And of course, we have our release knob here, so this is after I play. See how long that release is if I shorten it. Right, well, you can't really hear it. I say shorten it to 0. Then we have a short release, and then here I have a longer release. right? You hear the difference there. We have to the right of it something called movement, which is the depth and speed of bowing back and forth. So let's go ahead and check out how this could be manipulated and to see what it sounds like, see what we can create here. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of leave the attack around here and the release at a pretty reasonable release. Let's see. That's pretty good. And let's go ahead and raise the left side. So that's really cool. So notice how it starts to give it some movement, right? So the right side of it controls how fast you're going to get those waves. And then the left side is going to control just like the amount of depth that's going to have. So for example, if I raise it all the way up and I raise this all the way up, we're going to get really bouncy, really wavy sound. But if I lower this down a little bit so it's not that much movement, that's pretty cool. I could see this being used for manipulation. Let's say you draw like automation curves and you can kind of bring it up and down to kind of start the wobble and then kind of come back down and start it again. It's a really good composition technique to be able to use this. So that's actually really good to have inside of your plugins because I feel like it just adds another layer of just complexities. So on the right side we have modulation. So here it says it's like a chorus-like effect. So let's see what happens. Oh, so it works the same way. So it has both a left and right here. So we're going to go ahead and raise both. So that's interesting. It kind of does the same thing as the movement knob, but it does it more with like an effect. So you can hear as I go up and down, even like the overtones start changing a little bit. So that's pretty cool. And then vibrato, we have, I assume then the right side is going to control how fast the vibrato goes. And then the left side is going to be how strong you want that to be present. So let's go ahead and lower down modulation for now. And then go up vibrato. So that's pretty cool too. It gives you another layer of movement, right? And adding all of these together and just creating maybe something more intricate with different sounds. I see that this could be a very interesting tool for film composers, sound designers as well, just to give a little bit more movement to something. This is really good because it makes it very simple to use as well. It's just 3 little knobs that you're working with and you can already see how many different cases you could probably use some of these in your composition. So we're going to go ahead and move to the right side here, and this is what we call space. This is just their reverb mix. So the X axis is going to be for the mix, and then the Y axis is going to be for the size. So X is this one right here, and then Y is this one right here. So if we move this all the way to the right, we're going to get 100% wet mix of a reverb, right? But the size of the room is still very little. So in order to raise the size of the room, we have to go up. And as you hear, we have a really big reverb now. Whereas if I tone it down a little bit, we have somewhat of a room, right? A pretty decent sized room. Or you can go somewhere in the middle where you have, you can have somewhat of a dry mix as well, but you also have a little bit of reverb and size into it. And of course, to the right of that, we have the output section. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the knobs that we have up here. And we're going to do this in a different sound. So this has a lot of different sounds. So I'm just going to go ahead and scroll here so you can see how many different sounds it has. We even have an expansion pack here. So this just keeps going on and on and on. So honestly, this is very easy to just kind of see what sounds we have here. So let's just jump into the plucks just to see what they sound like. So we're going to go ahead and start plucking away. So that's a pretty interesting sound. It's very bright, it's very in your face, it's kind of gritty. And it could work for just like sticking or poking out of the mix. You want to emphasize like certain notes. I feel like this is a good use for this sound. Let's go ahead and move on to a different one that's maybe a little bit less bright so it doesn't hurt our ears as we're going through the video. So here we have the Marvelous preset. This one looks like it's gonna sound pretty good. So it's a little bit more bubbly, it's a little bit easier to listen to. Of course, we're going to be playing with these knobs, so I don't want it to be too bright, but this is a perfect sound to just check out what these other knobs do. The first knob we're going to go ahead and play around with is going to be the Chaos knob. So here it says, introduces non-linear behavior such as pitch glides and detuning. So this is kind of like that first preset where we heard the notes kind of detune and then come back up. So this is what this is here. So let's go ahead and just play a note. So we have two knobs here. We have this white one, which we could turn down, and then we have the main one here. That's super cool. A very interesting sound. So this does a really good job at really detuning that, but also keeping it subtle. So what I like about Atoms is that as you're moving the knob, you can really hear all of those notes in between the half steps, and it just makes it a lot more satisfying. Like, that's really cool. You can really create, you add some effects to that, add some delays to really have it bounce back and forth, and you can create some really cool sounds. So that's the Chaos knob. Let's go ahead and move over to the Order knob. So the Order knob says it's high frequency dampening. So let's see. Let's see if we move over here, MPE. We're gonna do sine wave. See if this helps us to hear it better. Oh, there it is. So that's actually really cool. Again, maybe sound designers can take advantage of using this. You could use this in your compositions for sure. Let's say you want to thin out the texture. This is a really good way to do it. Next one we have is Force. So Force is going to be to control the pressure of the bow. Think of it like a violin, right? So when you're running the bow across the strings, the more pressure you put on it, the more force that's going to come out of the sound. So let's see what this sounds like. So that's really cool, right? It almost feels like you're actually pressing down a lot harder, and it's all through software. That's really nice that they captured that sound for it to be able to feel like you're actually putting more pressure. And like it says here, noisiness and increased friction. When you do that on a normal violin or any string instrument, you really start to hear that grittiness, and they capture that really well using the Force. And we're going to go here to the right side of it and use overtones. So I assume this is just going to add like notes over the actual sound, overtones, right? Like those natural harmonics you hear. So I'm just going to play one note. So that's cool too. You can play with some natural harmonics if you want to. This also gives an element of realism to the instrument, to the synth itself, because think about it. Unless you're using an actual synth with oscillators, you're going to get like a pure sine wave. But if you're using this, let's say, for example, as a real instruments produce overtones. And that's actually a really good knob to have because it just makes it feel more organic, more natural to our ears. Even our voices have overtones. So that's actually a really good knob to have. So really good job, Atoms, by putting that in there because it just gives another layer of authenticity to the sound. Here we have the Drive knob. So we kind of already know what drive is, especially if you've been in music for a while, because drive just adds a little bit of distortion and clipping to the sound. So we have... And it does it in a pretty subtle way. Let's see if we move this into a saw wave. So I'm clicking this little button here and hitting saw, so we have 4 different sounds. Sine wave is just a regular sine wave. A saw wave is a sawtooth wave. Drift adds drift to the parameter, so it's probably going to be like, maybe if I use the white knob here. So this white knob around the ring is kind of giving us like a automation zone. Like we want you to go from point A to point B, and you can kind of place it wherever you want, which is really cool because let's say you just like this much from here and then like this high up, for example. You could leave it there and it'll play around just in that area. That's really cool, right? So this sound doesn't really add too much distortion or clipping to it, but you can hear it adds even extra harmonic elements into it. And then the last knob we have here is the filter knob. So the filter knob, it's going to do a low pass filter. So we could remove this and we're going to hear what it sounds like. Right, so the lower we go, of course, it's eating more of those higher frequencies, which means that you're going to have more of those lower frequencies passing through, right? If we raise it, then we're going to have more of those higher frequencies available. And then to the right here, we can toggle, it says toggle filter resonance. Okay, so it adds a little bit of a curve. As you can see here, it shows it. It gives you just a little bit of a curve to add a little bit more emphasis on the specific frequencies that you're filtering. It's kind of just like a standard resonance filter. So you hear here how it sounds very neutral, very flat, but if we add this, you even start to hear some more overtones because it's specifically focusing in on those frequencies. So this is pretty much the Atoms plugin. We're going to go ahead and just check out a little bit more sounds to see what we could do here. So let's go to the pad section. That's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. It's called Dystopia. Let's do a minor key. Whoa. Let's try less notes. Cool. That one you have to be careful with. It does have a lot of clusters in it. Nice. Ecto Party. Ooh, this is actually a really cool sound. Maybe a little higher. Kind of gives me a little bit of a, what's this movie called? There's a movie called Night Teeth where they're playing a lot with synth sounds. It kind of gives me that vibe. If I lower the filter here a little bit. Maybe like around there. That sounds pretty cool. You can create some really interesting sounds. Let's go to emotional. Really cool, right? So you could see that it's just very versatile, and you can hear that even through some of these sounds, you get a very different outcome. So it's not like some of these plugins where everything just kind of sounds the same. You have some room to play around with. So let's go ahead and just try out a little bit more. We're going to go into pulsing. Let's do vital. That's super cool, honestly. That's really cool. I can see myself using this in like a modern score. Really good sounds, honestly. So really good job, Baby Audio. Let's go ahead and try this one here. So this one's pretty cool. If we actually slow the attack down even more and not get so much of that heaviness in the front. Check this out. Right, you kind of hear a little bit of the element. You can even add some reverb into this. This actually could be a really good sound to use. Really, really cool. Let's try one more. Let's just go into maybe let's see, we did plucks, we did pads. Let's do some of the leads. Let's see this atomic flute. Okay, let's move on to Bs. Let's see some broken flute. That's pretty funny. Let's go into buzzy strings. That's really cool. That's actually already, maybe for like a hip hop track, that could be a really nice sound if we add a little bit more maybe distortion. Maybe we go a little lower. Right, we're gonna soften the attack a little bit. So before we take a listen to the track, here are my final thoughts of the Atmos plugin. If you are a film composer, if you are a sound designer, this is honestly something that you can use in your toolkit. I see myself using some of these for maybe texture things. Not so much the leads, because my compositions are more ambient, more cinematic. I would definitely see myself using some of the pads. The plucks are really nice to create just like that ambience. It does a really good job at creating some interesting and unique effects. So this plugin is really good at manipulating sounds. Very simple interface to manipulate sounds and create unique sounds. When you're using just a standard synth plugin, it kind of gets a little bit tedious to have to put LFOs and, you know, modulate here and then put some automation here. This kind of just does it pretty quick for you, and it sounds super good. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a listen to the final composition of me using atoms in a very simple cinematic example.